I will call to order the special council meeting, August 12th council meeting, and I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Father, we thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to come together and discuss the town business. Give us your wisdom, Lord. Help us to work through this and come to a quick and easy resolution as to all the things that we need to do. We just thank you, Father. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. And next item on the agenda is presentation by citizens for agenda items only. This is where you would address us on anything on the agenda tonight, if you so desire. Is there anyone who would like to address the council? Seeing none. Next item is new business. Approval to close St. Andrews Road for the 2013 Ochre Strut Parade. Is there a motion for approval of that road closing?
So moved.
And a second.
Second. Any
discussion? And just for the public that isn't here, that may be watching the thing, the only reason we're adding this to this is we forgot to do that road when we did the other roads last week, so this will kind of clear that up and move that forward. So all in favor of the approval to close St. Andrews Road?
I have some questions.
Oh, okay.
We voted to close Woodrow Street. St. Andrews Road from what? What are you talking about?
We don't have the parade on Woodrow.
For the parade, though. We didn't close it.
So you're closing St. Andrews Road from the middle school or?
Crossroads middle.
Entire road?
Yeah, just up to, from your Crossroads up to Lake Murray, I guess it is.
Yeah.
Same route we always done. Any more discussion? All in favor then of closing St. Andrews Road and from Crossroads Middle School all the way down to Lake Murray Boulevard, do so with show of hand. And next item is a selection of criteria for naming rights of features within the new community park of Irmo. And I guess we can do this a couple of different ways. We can start at one end of the table and just move across and just discuss what you think your criteria should be. We can just kind of, the only thing I'll ask is, just while we're discussing that, to let everybody else say what they got to say before anybody else gets started, so we can kind of keep up with it as far as to what criteria you want. I don't know if anybody has anything ready to share on their criteria, or we just want to start at one end of the table and move.
You want to start? Okay.
I don't know if I'm going to start. Only by saying that did our town attorney review this contract? No, that's what was at the last town meeting, that he was supposed to get the attorney at Department of Health about that particular contract, which had a lot of different items in here about length of time that they're going to have it, 100 years, and so forth. So I would ask, did our attorney approve those words?
No. What basically happened was, I wrote a proposed contract, I sent it to Bob. I basically asked Bob to forward it on to whoever at the hospital would have their attorney contact me. I spoke with their attorney, who indicated that she would draft something and get it back to me. The first time I saw it was when we were in the room the other night. There's some language in there I don't like some of the language in that contract, and I basically asked to defer it, and I asked Virginia to please have her attorney contact me sometime in the next week or so. I haven't heard from Betsy. That's their lawyer, Betsy Brad. I haven't heard from Betsy this week, but I assume that I will. Virginia said that she would have Betsy call. If Betsy doesn't call me by the end of the week, I'll call her, because we've got the council meeting coming up soon. And I'll be sure to bring back a contract that we both agreed to approve. The there's language in there that's a little bit open-ended that I don't particularly like. But I don't see where there'll be any major problem getting that language corrected. That's what I'm understanding.
What if we came with a document tonight and said, this is what we can live with, language we can live with, and said, here, Jake, give us, with your blessing, of course, give this to Betsy and say, this is what we agree with, what the council's agreed to. Would that be something that we could work with out and get this thing moving forward?
Well, right now, we've got items on the agenda,
Excuse me.
which is
Excuse me.
selection. Wait a minute.
Excuse me.
We can't do what
I'm
you're talking
talking to
about.
Jake right now.
But we
okay?
can't do that.
But excuse me, would that be something that we could forward and have her review it and then we'll come back and say at the next meeting?
No.
Yes, you could do that, assuming the agenda would permit it. I don't know if it will or not, but the truth of the matter is, I have learned a lot in dealing with these institutions.
Right.
You pretty much have to let them make their proposals to you. If you ever make them a proposal, the next thing they do is pick it up.
Exactly.
So I made what I thought was I made what I understood to be the agreement we had.
And they came back and gave us what they understood the agreement to be.
That's what they said.
So now we just gotta put together, lean the two
That's
together.
right.
Okay.
I just need a chance to talk to Betsy. If Betsy will call me, or if she doesn't, and I don't want to ask for this because it's a small, it's big to us, it's small to her. But if Regina said she was going to have Betsy call me, and I got to give Regina time to keep her word before I start trying to call Betsy and go over her chatting with me. But before we meet our next meeting, I would expect to have an occasion to talk to Betsy and have the language worked out.
Good.
And let me add on top of that, what we've got on the agenda is the selection of criteria and the approval. It has nothing to do with the contract. I mean, they can decide, council can decide whatever that selection is, whatever that criteria is, and then we can vote on it up or down. And then whatever that is would be incorporated into the contract, whether it's 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, or the big sign, a little sign, no sign, or whatever that thing is.
I'll do what you all tell me. And glad you tell me to do it, I'll do it.
Because I'm confused what the selection criteria is all about. That's why I asked the question. I don't get it. I mean, they offered us something and now we're telling them we have to give you a selection criteria, we have to come up with a selection criteria that will be approved by us?
Yeah.
So we can give it to them? I don't understand.
Well, I read some emails the other day, and again, we're here for this, we're here not for discussion on approval of the contract or anything to do with the contract. But I read a bunch of emails from other council members that they were not happy with that contract. I wouldn't vote for it, I wouldn't sign it. And so we need to
We're
come
not talking about
up,
the contract, so
we
we
need
need
to
to
come up with
contract.
the criteria that people will accept, all council, or three of them at least, work that out, and then whatever that criteria is, whether it's for the stage or the playground or the picnic shelter or the walking trail, then that same criteria can be used to kind of decide from there.
Criteria for what? I mean, basically they said here, we're offering some money for naming rights, a certain amount of years, whatever.
Now, they're gonna ask a lot more than that,
Of
Barry.
course they are, but obviously we're not gonna give them all that, but I'm saying that's another, the bottom line is that's what they're offering us. What criteria we need to come up with?
Well, I
don't get
think
it.
Bob
Well-
sent it to us.
Do you want to start?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because these are the kinds of things we haven't decided that we needed, we should have. And we just put the horse before the cart, I think. The length of naming rights, I'd say 10 to 15 years.
But
that's-
they're paying $120,000 for naming rights as long as that
Over
stage
10
exists.
years, maybe.
Right.
But we also have the amphitheater, the stage, and the picnic, the playground.
Exactly. So
So this contract has nothing to do with that. This is for
That's
the
right.
whole,
The
everything.
reason I say 10 to 15, when you go to a financial planner or when you look at actuarial tables or any of that, they tell you, you cannot really plan more than 5 years of your life. If you go beyond that, the Lord just starts laughing at you, So if we go over 15 or 20, I don't think it's within our jurisdiction to do that. I don't think we can do it. Now, 10 to 15 would be reasonable. If you press it and want 20, I wouldn't be opposed, but 10 to 15 is reasonable. I think these are the exact things that ought to be named: the stage and amphitheater, playground, picnic shelter, walking trails. If we get down to bridges, well, we could, that would be fine. Now, the type of sign, no, we're not going with this one. This will not work. 30 feet by whatever, and lit. I just signed the check for the electric bill today. It is over $3,500. And we're going to add another $200, $300, or $400 a month for a lit sign? No. I think it ought to be something like a brick or concrete column, something handsome, 4.5 feet tall maybe, or 4. And I think it ought to be a
I
bronze
disagree. If they're paying for it, let them put what they want for it.
Wait a minute, I hadn't finished. I think there ought to be a bronze plaque like we did at Veterans Park, something that's handsome and looks nice. Now, if they want to pay for a banner to use during certain events, like the orchestra, like any major event, and they tell us what it is, that's fine. I just don't think we can spend the money on a sign or the electricity, because we're already paying enough to SCE&G, I think. But I think something handsome, and then a banner if they had to have it for the orchestra or whatever, that could be taken down and that wouldn't have to be lit. I thought that the plaque we used at the Veterans Park was handsome, was very, very nice. And I think that would be nice in the park. I think it would look nice. Sign colors, if we did that, brick and bronze, it would be easy. The location, it should be mounted where people can see it right away, and that would be easy to do, I think. Now, the maintenance, there would be very little, unless we polish the bronze.
Wouldn't be any on a sign. I mean, there'd be maintenance on a lit sign or something that's got light bulbs.
And for this much money, the banner and all, I think we can do that, because this is a lot of money, and I understand that, I respect that. Now, the thing about no advance notice and using the park whenever they got to tell us, they got to call town hall. I'm happy for them to use it, but somebody's got to write down who's using it for what and when. Okay, that's my thoughts.
Okay, and I'd like to address a couple of your thoughts, if I may. I'm looking at a period of 10 years, because that's a term that they chose. They want to divide the money up to $120,000 over 10 years. Just like the Colonial Life Arena down in Carolina. They put up a big chunk of money, Colonial Life did initially, and they pay so much each year. Once they stop paying that, the naming rights go away, and it's up for bid again for somebody else or them to renew. So I think that the length of time should be tied to the length of the payments. That's right. The banner I totally disagree with, because you're asking the orchestra that would be getting a sponsor for a band, like Budweiser every year helps sponsor a band. V106 helps sponsor a band. They put their banners up.
Okay.
So they have it for that day. It would still be the Palmetto Health Amphitheater, but they would have other banners. When Dr. French has her little cloggers up there and little Miss Poots, they need to have their banner, her banner up as a sponsor for that. And there will be other issues that will come, other bands and other events down there that would have to have some of their display. It would still be the Palmetto Health Amphitheater. I don't believe that the signage that they have here even meets, I know it doesn't with the signage that they want on the back wall, doesn't meet our signage ordinance. I was totally opposed to the 100 years. I was opposed to their statement that they would use it as often as they requested. I think it's going to have to be just like our town park. and I'm trying hard to remember to call it the community park. But the town park, we have to schedule through town hall.
Yeah.
So that we don't have somebody doing something in the midst of a scheduled wedding and that kind of thing. And that's going to be the same thing that's going to happen in the community park, is scheduling. So I don't have any problem with them using it if it's available. The walking trail is totally out. Now, I told Regina right here, and of course that's just me, when she was saying, you got to give us something else. You got to give us something else, like the walking trail. And I said, well, I can't see that being on the table at all, because we've got some other people that's wanting to put some bucks into the walking trail and signage around that. And the next item, it appears, which is bullet 5, is that they're expecting their name on all of our printed material. Does that include our letterheads and everything that's related to the park? If it's mentioned, it's got to have their logo on it.
I think that's against the law.
And then the last one, they will be allowed to use the entire facility at no cost. I mean, we're going to have people that's already stepping forward wanting to sponsor the picnic area. We've had the children's playground area. I had even had one call me about our meditation pond, and I'm saying, where is the meditation pond? They said, well, you've got one in the town park now. And I thought, oh, that's the pond with the little spray in it. All right, you can meditate down there on the bridge. I don't know.
Well, we're putting a fountain in that big detention pond that's full of water. You can put a fountain in it.
Yeah. So, but as you started naming off some things, there are other. So if somebody else names that, but yet they're going to come in and take over the entire park, they wouldn't want somebody that sponsors the picnic area coming and taking over the stage.
When my daughter got married, I called town hall and said, I need to use the park for an hour, whatever. But I scheduled it around what was already scheduled. This park is very popular. But they took her bridal portrait in our park. I mean, that was important to me. And there could be things like that going on that we have to schedule around. I mean, that's good advertising for the park too.
I'm looking at this one now, not what Palmetto Health Center, but I think this may have come either from Jake or something, where number 1, it had the length of time of 10 years. Item 2, about signage and the rights to erect reasonable signage, and I think that can be discussed as well. And who's going to maintain the condition of that? I think a lot of that depends on whether it's a lighted sign. It spells out their desire of how they wish to pay the money, and I think that I have no problem with that. I think number 5 says they'll have a reasonable right to usage of the park without pay. I think that should be clearly spelled out, as long as it can be scheduled with the town. But I really have a problem with number 5. I'm sorry, number 6. It says once the $120,000 and no cents payment has been made in full, the right of Palmetto Health System to name the stage shall exist so long as the stage exists and so long as the sign is adequately maintained. That is totally opposed to the first item, which is the term of the agreement shall be for a period of 10 years. So I'm not sure how that, if I'm reading that wrong or what. I think that the sponsorship ends when the money ends. I know that we're doing something, the orchestra is doing something with Lexington Hospital, $15,000 a year, and the minute that $15,000 ends, their name comes off the front of the orchestra festival. Right now it's the Lexington Medical Center's orchestra festival, but the minute that money stops, that ends. And that's more than the they were already for a 2-day festival committed to
15,000.
almost half of what Palmetto's committed to. For a total of 4 years, that's $55,000, $60,000.
60,000.
Half of it for just a 2-day festival. Don't get me wrong, I like the $120,000 and all, but not for 100 years.
We can't do it for 100 years, man.
So,
Don't look at me. I don't work for you.
do you want to go next, or Councilman Youngner, or?
You mentioned this 10-year period, and the reason why that 10-year period was on there, Mr. Hoots, is because that's the period they said they want to spread the payments over 10 years. You know, their budget for basically grants and giving things is $150,000 a year. If they wrote us a check for $120, they shot their whole budget for the year.
Yeah, I
But
understand
if they
that.
broke it up over 10 years, it's little chunks of $112,000. It's a lot less than they can absorb that a lot easier in their budgeting process. So that's where the 10 years came from.
Okay.
Now, the naming rights, if you say it's a conflict between number 1 and number 6, and it appears to be, I'm talking from their agreement that the great agreement that Jake had wrote, okay? The way Jake had wrote it, it appears to be a conflict, but it wasn't. What I understood him to say is that the agreement is for 10 years for the payments of $12,000 a year. After the $12,000 a year has been paid in full, then the signage and the naming rights would exist as long as the stage is there and as long as the sign is adequately maintained by Palmetto Health. It's not saying that we have to maintain it, and it's not saying that we have to pay the electric bill on it. It's saying as long as it's been adequately maintained forever. Now, if you got a problem with forever, okay, I understand that. You might have a problem with forever, and that's fine. Pick a period. 20 years is not enough. 15 years is not enough. 10 years is not enough. These folks are paying a large chunk of the amphitheater budget for a reason. They want to have a presence in our park for a long time. And their presence is, I thought, for 20, 30 years, you know, I can live with that with no problem. It's long past where I'll be on council and around here, so, hey, I don't have a problem with that. To me, 30 years is forever for me. 100 years, yeah, that's excessive. I understand that, I agree. But 10 years is not enough, not for that amount of money. I mean, it's gonna take them 10 years to pay for the thing. And the whole idea was that they were getting some residual, you know, presence after that. As far as the other items I'm going back to what they gave us.
Yeah.
The walking trail out of there, I don't know where that came from. I don't know where that came from at all. The walking trail is another feature that we have somebody else looking at that may want to bid on or may want to purchase. So that's, you know, if they want to put in some more money, sure. They can have the walking trails too, but this is not a part of this deal. And so, you know, take that out completely, I agree. Palmetto Health being listed on all the town printed materials, referencing the park either by name or logo. I think what they're saying is they were trying to get you to say that this is a Palmetto Health amphitheater, just like this is the Lexington Medical Center orchestra. When you reference that Lexington Medical Orchestra, you're supposed to reference the Lexington Medical Center orchestra as long as that period of the sitting of that $15,000.
And when that 15,000 stops.
You stop referencing the.
That's what I was saying about
orchestra.
the 10 years.
Okay.
Once that 10
When we
years.
figure out the period, then yeah, I agree.
Okay.
So that when we figure out the term, and I agree, that sucks. But that's what they were talking about in that item, about all the printed material or references to the amphitheater. They were saying that they want their names referenced as this is the Palmetto Health Amphitheater, not the just amphitheater in the community park. And that's certainly reasonable. Now, as far as all printed material, I don't know about all that. What printed material do we have?
Stationary. We're not going to put it on
We
stationary.
don't have any stationary.
Town has
referencing the park.
stationary,
We're not referencing the new community park.
but Bob could be writing a letter and might mention the community park and the stage area, and we'd have to put the logo on the stage? No, we're not going to do that.
Referencing the Palmetto Health stage. Not put the logo on it.
I don't know where we can put their logo that is not, because we bordering on not doing it right here. You can't do that.
Well, all they're saying is that they want reference as a Palmetto Health stage, Palmetto Health amphitheater. And that's fine. I don't see a problem with that if you want to reference it. You reference the orchestra as election reference an orchestra. You can reference the stage as a Palmetto Health stage or amphitheater. Palmetto Health being allowed to use the park at no cost. I mean, does anybody have a problem with that? No, I don't think so. I mean,
Not as long as it's scheduled.
on the schedule, yeah, of course. I mean, I'm not gonna say that they're not gonna have carte blanche, you know, they can just call me and say, oh, we need a park tonight. And we got a wedding scheduled tonight, or whatever. Of
No,
course
but
not.
they would, my issue was that they used the word entire, which if we had the local Kiwanis Club that was wanting to use the picnic shelter and the local elementary school wanted to use the children's play area, those things could be going on simultaneously.
Simultaneously.
That means entire can't exist, the entire park.
Because it's not available.
That's right, the
And
entire park would not be
perfectly
available.
understandable. That's why we spell it out and say that, if available, or when available, or whatever language, Jake, that you have to put in there to make it so that it's clear that, yes, we don't mind if it's available. But as far as the no cost, I don't think anybody has a problem with them not paying for that. Do you have a problem with that?
No, we don't have a problem with
Okay.
it. As long as they schedule it at the town hall, that's fine.
But wouldn't we want to have the ability to rent the entire park? I mean, if you want to have a wedding, you don't want any disturbance while the wedding's going on.
We don't
You
rent
don't-
the park.
Well, I know because it'd be hard to close it off. We're talking about the community park of Irmo. Couldn't it be closed off?
I would think the only problem is if, like you got the playground and kids in the
Yeah,
neighborhood want to go play, and you're trying to close it off, or neighbors or people are trying to get on that trail and walk around, they may have,
Well, that could be some good revenue possible. Revenue, you know, maybe $1,000.
Well, the picnic shelter,
Revenues are-
well, maybe it's, I don't know. The picnic shelter, somebody might have something going on at the same time, the picnic shelter, a barbecue going on at the same time there's a concert going on or something, you know? How can you stop that? I mean, you can't.
Can't. That's where the
I don't think-
entire thing would just, and I'm just keying on that word because,
Yeah.
you know, if I say I got rights to the entire park, I got rights to the entire park, I can say, I'm gonna have something in the picnic shelter, and I don't want the noise from that amphitheater.
Yeah, you can't.
there. So,
Again, if it's available, that's the key.
yeah, and properly scheduled.
Right.
And I don't have a problem with that, the
So I don't
schedule.
either, as long as they call
It
it
was
down.
just the word, and the wording was Palmetto Health will be allowed to use the entire facility
At no cost.
at no cost.
At no cost.
And at another time, they mentioned it when they wanted to, as often as they wanted to, or as often as requested.
Now, they mentioned the wellness thing. That's probably during the day. And if they schedule that, I think that's a good thing for us to do.
Yeah, it's
I might even go
scheduled.
participate in it, you know.
Yeah.
No, but so the only real odds that we had in this is the walking trails and the length of the period.
well,
Is that
Mr.
right?
Youngner hadn't spoke yet, and I hadn't spoke
I'm
yet
saying
either.
so far. That's what I'm hearing.
No,
right?
that's not right. I've got some comments too on some of it.
Okay.
I'll let Mr. Youngner go next, if you'd like.
The cost of the amphitheater, did it cost $120,000?
Costs more than that. Costs
So
100.
where did the 120 come from?
That's the figure that I was given by
That's what they wanted.
Grimble or whatever they said. It'll be about $120,000 to build that amphitheater. You know, that amphitheater stage.
What did the amphitheater cost? What will it cost?
It was about $190,000, taking into consideration all the grading and the mortar work and the actual stage and the stage, the roof and everything. But a lot of that was graded. So, I mean, it wouldn't be the cost of actually building the stage and the amphitheater itself. So that's why Morgan picked 120. We figured the other 70,000 is about the grading cost, the prep work.
So, $120,000 does cover the
Yeah.
the theater itself.
The actual structure, the material is there now.
So after 10 years, supposedly it's already been bought, kind of, sort of. What's next? I mean, someone comes in to give another $120,000? That would be the goal.
We need revenue, see?
Sure,
This is-
cost to operate it.
Yeah.
And you got a 400 amp service over there. It ain't cheap.
But electricity really is minor. I mean,
No, it's $3,500 a month.
No, not for that
there's ways to make
stage.
that,
Come on now.
LED lights.
No, I'm saying that's what it is now, and we'd
Sorry.
only be adding to it.
But not that much for a light, a slided sign.
You gonna get up there and replace them bulbs?
Well, I don't have to put bulbs, put LEDs up there. I mean, there's a number of ways to do it now. I mean, and we can make them do it.
But it should be something that can be replaceable, of course.
Make them responsible for the maintenance of the sign. I mean, as simple as that. I mean, they're willing to do that.
$120,000.
They're buying the
Maintain a
sign,
sign.
but they're willing to pay for the sign. They're willing to pay for the sign right now. They're willing to pay for the sign, they're willing to maintain the sign. If it's a lighted sign, I guess that we may be willing to pay for a little bit of electricity it's gonna cost.
Well,
Put a meter on that sign.
but it needs to be in our sign ordinance, it really does.
There's no problem with that. And they don't have a problem with that. They just gave, here's what we want to put up a sign look like.
But we could do the bronze on the brick and have a spotlight on it, I think that would be lovely.
But as far as the duration of years, I agree with Harvey that 10 years will be fine. 100 years is,
A little too
I
long.
can't make decisions when I'm not going to be here.
Anything else?
That's all.
As far as the years, I would agree with the others. I had wrote down on my little thing 5 to 10, 15 max. So that 10, I think, is a good, probably medium ground between what everybody said. And as far as the, on their contract, to use the amphitheater at no cost as often as requested. The only problem I have with that, other than the often as requested, is based on what they got written right now, and even based on the other thing, is they could come in here August or September 29th or whatever and say, we want to use the park during our orchestra or any other event. So I think that is a no-no, it just needs to be gone, and then they can get with Bob and set up a time to rent it out. I would also say, as far as often as requested, that so many times a year, whatever that be, 1 or 2, 3, 4, or something. We're not renting the park to them, we're just giving them sign space. If, like at our existing town park, if my understanding is somebody wants to use the gazebo for who knows what, they can use it and not pay. But if they want to reserve it and make sure it's guaranteed, then they got to pay. Is that kind of correct? If they don't pay, they can show up and use it if nobody else
If
is.
nobody else is there, right? First come, first served.
And I think the same thing over there. If nobody else is using the amphitheater and they want to use it, fine. But it would need to be scheduled. But I would almost, and I don't know what we do on the existing town park, and the same thing for the picnic shelter and everything else. All this stuff would be the same. That if somebody wants to rent it for, like the picnic shelter, for $100 a day or whatever the thing is, then they can rent the amphitheater for, say, $100 a day or whatever charge. As far as doing the whole park, I think that would be a problem because of neighbors using the playground and the trails. But I think if somebody said, I want to rent the amphitheater and the playground, or the picnic shelter, so that nobody else will be using it the day that I have my wedding and there's not a band, then they would have to, say, pay for both of them. But that kind of stuff, I think you can work out later too, as far as the rental and all that. As far as the sign, and whether it's for the amphitheater or for the playground or for the, whatever else the other thing is, the picnic shelter, I don't know if we've agreed yet. Are we talking about a little bronze plaque that sits on the side of the building in the ground that says sponsored by? Or are we talking about whoever putting their sign up on the structure? And I think once you get into putting their sign up on the structure, I think I have a little bit of problem with that too. If square footage, I don't know, our ordinance when it says wall space, how you would calculate the wall space there since there's really not any walls. But I think something that is generic or the same, whatever you want to call that, that so-and-so buys a plaque or whatever you call it for the picnic shelter or the walking trail, they get this kind of plaque, and it goes on the ground or on a tree or on the side of the building. And the same thing for the amphitheater there. They get a plaque that says they've sponsored it, donated to it, or whatever. What do you call it, illuminated palmetto tree. The main problem I have with that is vandalism. You know, kids shooting a BB gun out, and we're responsible for maintaining it. I don't know how much those things cost, but $120,000 wouldn't pay for enough of those over a 10-year period if they kept shooting them out. I would say no to that altogether. As far as
See what you're saying?
Huh?
You see what you're saying?
Yeah. Oh, you can't hear. I'm sorry.
as far as the
Speak up, Marty.
the sign being I think you got here a wood sign, a bronze sign. I think those are good. Something that can be the same throughout the park for all the different things and not have different signs in there. I think if you do, you're going to end up, I won't say kind of tacky, but this company has this one up, this one has this, and this one has that, and it starts to look like a commercial, Carowinds or something like that. The maintenance of the signs, I think, if it's a bronze or a wooden engraved sign, us maintaining it ain't gonna be that bad, other than maybe if vandals get to it and spray paint it, and we gotta clean it. But a lighted, illuminated sign, I think, I would definitely say that you'd have to, and I don't know that I would even agree to put one of these in there or vote for it.
I believe they may just refer to this house. They're talking about a sign. It's going to be at the amphitheater. At night, when there's a concert, lights will be on at the amphitheater. You should be able to see the sign. In the daytime, it'll be fine. You'll see the sign anyway. When it's night and no one's there, no one's going to be there to see it anyway. I don't think we're talking about lighting the sign.
Well, I think their thing did say illuminated.
Theirs is illuminated.
Yeah, that little palmetto tree is.
Lit up.
The big one's not, but that little palmetto tree at the back, they wanted it illuminated. And then the Palmetto Health, I think, if I'm reading, they wanted wood with silver letters. But again, whether it's the amphitheater and Palmetto Health or whoever knows, or Lexington Medical or somebody for the walking trail, I think what we're here is to kind of come up with an idea of what signs we will accept and get that kind of stuff down.
The kind of sign there would cost almost $120,000 if that's...
$30,000 is
That's
what you
it.
said it cost.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
my goodness.
They're putting $30,000 sign out there. Which is a concern about maintenance, that some kids throw a rock with BB guns, slingshot. Kids are kids. Who picks them?
And if it's lit at night, that's a target, I would think, for, hopefully there's not that many kids in there at night, but at some point, some kids are gonna
It's not,
take their shot at it.
What if you put a copy, you won't light it unless there's a function going on there? I mean, it could be on a timer.
Yeah, the other issue that I have is right where that sign is where banners are gonna go for other
Stop.
events. Are they gonna be upset when their sign gets covered up by Budweiser?
Talking about that palmetto tree or the...
No, the Palmetto Health Amphitheater. That's right where just below that, where your stage lighting is going to be hoisted up, and banners are going to be attached, and so they're going to be upset. Well, we put this big sign up, now you covered it up.
You're not covering it up, you just might attach something to it. I mean, it's still, even if they put a Budweiser sign underneath, it's still a Palmetto Health Amphitheater. It doesn't matter. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it hasn't changed.
Well, if I'm looking at it correctly, I would think that the Lexington Medical Center or the Budweiser, whoever, would be hanging their sign directly on top of this one.
Yeah,
That's
what's
what I was
Because if you hang it too much lower, then you're going to hide the bed. Or,
That's that's my,
No, they're not gonna hang it right on top of it. They're not gonna cover up the sign of the existing sponsor. That's not gonna happen.
well, I mean,
It could be.
That's
It
not
could.
gonna happen.
unless we
That's not
decide
gonna
the sign doesn't go there, or we decide they can't. But then when you decide they can't put their sign up there, if I were Lexington Medical, I wouldn't want to pay $15,000 to put it to the side or put it behind
It's
it.
not the Lexington Medical Center amphitheater, it's
But
Lexington
it's the Lexington
It
Medical
has to be for
Orchestra. And
one
for
or
2
two
days, they've
years.
already paid.
It's the orchestra, not the amphitheater. The amphitheater is totally different than the orchestra.
But
They're
the
using
other
the
guys
stage.
They're in there.
using the park, and Budweiser and B106 and Dr. French are sponsoring things. When their groups come up, that's when their sign goes up. And if it goes up in front of this, it's a banner, it goes up in front of it, are they going to be upset? Number one. Number two, and I have to yield to Bob, but a 34 foot 10 inch, you might as well say 35 feet by a foot 8 inch, that's bigger than our sign ordinance allows. So how are we going to tell the new shopping center that's coming in down here that they can't exceed our sign ordinance? And that would be that one. We haven't even talked about the palmetto tree there yet. That is almost twice what our sign ordinance is.
What does our sign ordinance allow?
75 square feet.
That's in general commercial property.
Right, remember, this is
Right,
residential.
that's a residential.
Yeah, and this is also, I don't know how you
I hadn't
count
even
square
gone
feet.
there yet, but at the most, it's 75 square feet surface area, right?
Correct.
I mean, we forced Jim Hudson and them to change their signage to get it within the square footage area, and Toyota USA to change it.
But would that really apply? This is a park. I mean, this is not,
How are we going to
it's
do
not
that?
going to change
I can
traffic. It's
How
not
do
going
we
to
do
come out
that?
of cars.
can't do
It's
that.
going to be a distraction.
We can't do that.
That's all they can't do. They don't have a problem. They don't have a problem with
Wouldn't
that.
there be different rules,
This is what
Bob?
they said they wanted.
Could there be different rules?
Now, if we don't like it, tell them we can't do that. We can do that. That's not a
Council can make any rules they want. That's
I
why
mean, we'd
we're
have to
here.
make one up, but I mean, got one.
The ordinance wouldn't allow it, just based on what the verbiage is and the way our zoning ordinance is written. It just wouldn't
Well,
allow it because of the
let me
zoning.
bring this up. In our ordinance, we have INS, which for institutions, and it says this column does not represent a zoning district. It applies to institutional and other non-residential uses permitted under the zoning ordinance in residentially zoned districts, i.e. churches, schools, parks. And the maximum allowed signage is, for square footage, is 20 feet. And maximum height, 12, but I mean that.
So 20 by 12?
No, 12 foot
No,
high off the
height.
ground, and then no more than 20
As far
square
as
foot.
you had it, you know.
So it'd be like 10 by 2 or 5 by 4 or something like that, maybe, is that right?
20 square feet, and how far off the ground?
12 feet.
12 feet
12 feet?
off the ground.
There's
Then you have a
some.
wall area of only 10, well, what they do, that took 10 square feet, so.
Okay, I think we need to give them the criteria of this, what our sign ordinance's criteria is.
Yeah.
Let them design a sign around that. They didn't have that to design the sign, they just went from what they wanted, okay? So give them, I said we just agree to the criteria and give them, here's what our signage ordinance says for criteria for signage. So design your sign around that.
I think you're going to have to kind of do it that way, because the way you read that and the way I'm interpreting what you said was that you're allowing an institutional or a business sign in residential area. That means that if Kurt Luther wants to, you use my name in vain, I'm going to use yours. If Kurt Luther wants to start running his newspaper out of his house, which is in a residential area, that he could put a sign up.
No, that only applies to churches, schools, parks.
Okay, churches. So if it's Kurt Luther's house of what's happening now, church, then he could put a sign up.
If it was zone residential,
If
correct?
it was on residential. If we had someone come in and wanted to run the church out of their house, or what was
Well, a good example is, there are some churches here that are zoned residential, and some that are zoned general commercial. So depending upon what they're in, if that church is located in general, their signage is
different?
different. If it's zoned residential, as a, a church, school, you're allowing them to have a sign based on that square footage.
I think we ought to furnish them with a copy of that. We can't break our own laws, our own rules. I mean, that looks
They
bad.
don't have a problem, I'm sure they don't have a problem with that, but they have to know those criteria.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to give them. Here's what the criteria for signage is, this is why you can't do that.
And let me see if we got a consensus so far on some of this stuff anyway. But what I'm hearing from council, at least a couple of them, is 10-year term. You can name the stage, the playground, the picnic shelter, and trail. The bridges and open areas, I don't know if everybody 100% agrees with that. The size of the sign would be no larger than 20 square foot and no taller than 12 feet off the ground. That's kind of...
No, whatever the signage,
Yeah, that's what she just said.
whatever our sign ordinance says, not, don't give
But that's-
specifics.
But I'm...
That's
That's
what she just read, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the only thing we still are kind of stuck on is sign colors, the types of signs as far as illuminated or not, or plastic or wood, location,
And we're stuck on length of time too, because I don't agree with that 10 years.
and location, is that still, are we,
Well,
why don't we do that real quick, as far as location, are we saying you can put them on the structure or a little plaque on the ground? A little bronze plaque on the ground or a sign on
Well,
the
that's why I
structure?
put it on there. If somebody has a sponsored walking trail, got to go on the ground. The playground, there's no place to hang it really, it's got to go on the ground. Picnic shelter could be hung from the shelter, and the stage could be hung. I mean, do we want them all to be consistent, or are we going to allow flexibility with a type of sign on the stage one way and another one on the picnic shelter a different way, and one on the playground? I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just, we need to know.
That's why I said put it on the column 4 feet high, and everybody have the same piece of bronze.
Well,
It's no maintenance, and it looks very nice. Now, in this case, because of the amount of money, let them go by the sign or that, I
So
understand.
you're saying putting them on a column, you mean a
brick-
post, like a
A brick column, like
Oh,
a
okay.
square,
Along
yeah,
brick column and then a...
bronze.
Bronze.
Just like at the
Like a
Veterans
monument?
Park. Yeah,
monument?
no, like
I think they get-
4 feet high,
This is
brick
solid
column,
wall.
square column. And then on top of that, like angled down, a bronze plaque that says, this trail, this whatever, is sponsored or by whoever, whatever, which I think looks nice. Now, if we get to monuments, it looks like a tombstone.
But the brick, you're talking about like over here at Irmo Park, with something brick like that,
Yeah.
with this...
Brick looks better than concrete, because concrete is kind of ugly. But I think brick's pretty, and I think that sign that we did for the Veterans Park is beautiful.
Yeah, but that's on a piece of ground.
That's on a rock, yeah.
Kind of rock, yeah.
Well, that's why we can't, in case we can't find that many rocks, put it on
And
a
as far as
brick.
the size of the, say, bronze medal, you're talking about, I don't know, 2 foot by...
Well, you can give them something big, I mean, if we're trying
3
to,
foot?
Yeah.
It could be a big 4 foot by 4 foot, or something that's going to be seen by anybody that comes anywhere around the stage, or the playground, or the picnic shelter. They're going to see this big rock with a big sign on it. That's fine.
We don't measure, when you're doing signage for the face, it's the face of the sign, not what it's on. So we don't measure the brick, we don't take into consideration brick, you're taking the sign face itself.
Right, because these aren't
Think about-
signs, these are monuments. If we're going to do it
Right.
on a rock, on a
Think
ground.
think about this too. The signage is right across the street. The brick with the big round sign, very much like this. Picture that on the back of the stage, their signage, basically like that. And then we bring a band in, and the band sits right up in front of it, and nobody can see it. Are they gonna be happy?
No,
I would
think
not be.
this, because of the amount of money, I think we ought to make an exception.
You're gonna tell a band they can't set up in the middle of the stage?
And do something in the air like they want that meets the ordinance.
Right, but I'm just saying, if you wanted to do it across the back like this, when a band sets up there, the drummer
You're not
is
gonna
gonna
see it.
be...
You're not gonna be able to
Right,
see
you're
it.
not gonna see it, period.
That's what I'm saying, we probably can't do that, but just the brown part, the palmetto health part, you can do. That's something that certainly can be worked out. You just gotta do it within our sign ordinance.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm
And
I would
let them
make sure
maintain
they
it.
understood that something's gonna go right there in front of you, and you're a musician, you know that's gonna be totally blocked. I can just close my eyes and envision every band we've ever had, even when it was little local guys and girls from the area that had their own little band. That's where they set up. The drummer's right in the middle. It's raised up a little bit.
Set them right in front of that little tree right there.
Right.
Set your drums up right in front of that tree. That's a point zero.
So, that, they need to be aware of that. I would be upset if you took my money and I invested my money in a sign in that location, and then it got covered up
It
with
would have-
basically everything that
It would
went
have to
on.
be over on the side. That's why I said 4 feet high, if it was on the side so it could be visible.
You're talking about in front though, to the side.
Uh-huh.
Right, the picnic shelter, it'd be, say, to the side or
Somewhere by the
Yeah.
walkway there, you'd have to walk right by it to get to the picnic
get to the
shelter.
picnic.
Yeah, you want to do it where people can see it.
They're permanent, the maintenance is little or none, and it looks good. It looks good from the park perspective, and I would think from the sponsors, I think
Yeah, but if they're paying for it, let them pick what they want.
if it
As long
falls
as it
within
falls
that
in our
ordinance, it's
ordinance.
fine, yeah.
I mean, if they want a black, if they want a plaque, if they want a lit sign, let them, they're paying for it. And then put in the caveat that they have to maintain it. If they don't maintain it, then we take it, take it from there. I mean, it's their nickel, it's not ours.
If they're gonna do it,
What is the problem? I mean, it's their nickel. They're gonna do it. If they want to spend that, knowing what we know now with the dimensions, I'm sure that that's not gonna be a $30,000 sign, unless they got gold-plated lights. I don't know what they do.
Well, if they don't get the 32-foot sign, the price is going to go down. Obviously.
Absolutely.
If that's
So,
the bid.
if they're prepared to spend that much, I mean, let them.
So type of sign,
So you're saying what we want to do is anybody that gives us money for any feature out there, they can put whatever kind of sign they want. If
As
they-
long as it falls within the sign criteria that we have listed on our sign ordinance. And those walking trails, of course, there's nothing, like you said, there's nothing to hang.
Right.
There's nothing to mount it to. So if somebody wants to name, what is it? Is it by feet, the walking trails, or a certain section of the walking trail? I don't know how y'all do it, breaking it up, but if they want to name like the first 100 yards of walking trail after Harvey Hoots, then they can put the Harvey Hoots 100 feet. And then, the next 100 feet would be the Paul Young 100 feet, and then so forth and so on. And then, but let them decide on how they're going to, get credit for it, as long as we get the check.
but we don't want it to be ugly.
Of course not. Now, I mean, again, you have to
Well,
be
it could be.
reasonable about it.
It could be, I
Yeah.
know.
What's ugly to you may be pretty to me, okay?
I'm
You
pretty
know?
sure it is. I wouldn't wear that.
You wouldn't wear these pants.
I would not wear
You
those
see, but
pants.
see,
No,
these
I
are
would
the
not.
hottest things happening in the cooking.
Well, let me tell
See
you,
that?
somebody our size, it vaguely resembles a foreign flag unfurled. So you just have to be cognizant of that.
Just talking about my cooking pants.
so as far as type of sign, are we in agreement then that it can be hanging or mounted, basically, mounted on the structure or in ground?
There's nowhere to hang one on any other thing, is there?
the
The picnic
picnic
shelter's got a roof,
Yeah,
right?
that's where you could put one up in the little gable area,
It's got a gable where you could,
put
Okay,
something there.
okay.
Got a sponsor for a bathroom, they won't.
And as far as sign colors, are we saying they can put up any sign they want to, or it has to be in
No, I
conformity?
think they don't
With-
I
conform
don't think
to
we
some.
control that, do we?
On a
not-
business, we don't, but now on our property, yeah, we
Yeah,
could if we wanted
business.
to.
We could say that we have to approve it.
Us approve it, or town administrator?
Town administrator be all right.
Well, zoning administrator.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, let's put something that it needs to be approved and according to town ordinance or whatever. Don't you think? 'Cause
Well,
we're
let's
not
give
gonna
them, we need to give them some,
What if Kentucky Fried Chicken decides to sponsor something? We're gonna have a picture of a damn bucket up there on the picnic? No, we're not gonna do that. No.
got pies.
You also might, say,
We don't have it?
it's dark, it needs to be.
Chick-fil-A was gonna have that spotted cow.
Near residents, and I don't know if they can see it or not, but in the wintertime they might.
Well, the stage one, the first one we're talking about, yeah, they wouldn't be able to see that, but we're trying to establish some ground rules for anybody else.
Ask Hardy. Hardy's doing the right.
what?
If y'all will let me help you for a minute, the reason why I told Regina to take this thing back last week is because when I read what she gave me, I had the same concerns you folks have got tonight. But right now, what we're doing is beating each other up, arguing and negotiating with air. The problem is that when the deal was structured, it was structured in principle and not in specifics. And the deal needs to be hashed out with specifics. We are beating air. We don't have anybody on the other side to talk about specifics with. What needs to happen is there needs to be a representative from the town and a representative of the hospital talk in order to hammer out the specifics. It's a good thing that there was a general agreement hammered out. But the specifics have got to be devils in the details. And the contract is written, we all know, it needs a little bit of work. Now, either y'all can tell me, Jake, hey, you go hammer this thing out with Betsy, or somebody from the town needs to sit down with somebody from the hospital and hammer out the specifics that we're all talking about. We understand size, we understand lighting, we understand time, we understand design, we understand accessibility of the park, we understand all those things are issues which are not specific enough and which need to be hammered out. But we're talking to ourselves as we continue this talking back and forth. Someone needs to sit down with somebody at the hospital, hammer out the specific issues and bring back something that is specific that can be approved and maybe tweaked if necessary. Now, y'all can appoint me to do it, you can appoint Barry to do it, you can have a committee do it, you can have a party go do it, you can any way you want to. But right now, when we're simply talking about these issues, we're just talking.
Well,
we've got nobody to talk with.
And let me run it back into a different thing. What we got on the agenda and what was on the emails and what went out the other day was not so much the contract here, which there was some disagreement with it, was I think Harvey's talking to somebody on the walking trails, Kathy's talking to somebody on the picnic shelter playground. We don't need to have this same meeting every time this comes up. And that was why it was said, get the criteria, come up with some ballpark stuff, and then everybody knows what the outline is, whether it's 10 years, 15 years, or 100 years. But the contract itself, yes, that should have been done. Should have been done before the last two meetings. I mean, it was on the agenda twice. And then this came in, and then everybody was kind of like, no, we can't agree to that. We don't have it on our agenda, though, to discuss this contract. We have it on here to discuss the criteria for all this stuff so that we can go away from here tonight. And Bob has a good idea. I know they'll do this. I know they won't do that. And whether it's the playground and Kathy's talking to whoever, Barry's talking to the stage or Palmetto Health, Harvey's talking to whoever's walking trail, they all know. You know, here's what kind of sign, here's this, here's that, here's that. If somebody's ready to make a motion for some kind of approval, which is the next thing on there, then let's make one, let's vote on it, let's move on. And then y'all can take that criteria and I think again, Bob would have some kind of leeway, whether it's the Palmetto Health or Lexington Medical or somebody, to kind of decide what do we want to do down the road. I think that the good thing that Harvey brought up a while ago, I think one of the picky things with this is because we have the ochre strut and because we have somebody who wants to name the same item and they're both willing to pay, we don't want to offend one for the other. But as far as most of the stuff, I think we're somewhere near. We've got I think a consensus on the length. We got a consensus on what can be named, the size of the sign, and the type is still kind of open to whatever the people want to pay for and that. So I guess we're kind of ready if somebody wants to.
And this would be like the master plan or what, and there could be exceptions.
Yeah, I mean, if Bob talks to somebody and they come up with something, and he can come back to council and say, hey, here's what they want.
Yeah.
But
Good idea to have it.
But I'm here in 10 years, I'm here in the stage, playground, picnic track, and trails, and then the size to meet our ordinance, whether it's whatever that ordinance is for the size of the building or the other thing. And then the type of sign is whatever anybody wants to pay for, and then you can approve it. And if you're happy to approve it, you can just say, yeah. If you're not, you need to say, hey, give me some leeway or give me some guidance.
10 years is an arbitrary number. You just told me Lexington Medical Center got this orchestra for 5 years. Why would you give them 10 years maybe on it?
We didn't give them 10 years.
We didn't give them 10 years.
We gave it to them $15,000 per year.
For 5 years.
And
Okay,
it
so
goes
why would you give them 10 years then?
as long as they pay the $15,000,
Right.
they get it for that year. If they
But that's
don't,
not what we presented to Palmetto Health. We said you want naming rights for the amphitheater and stage as part of construction for whatever period of time we're going to do it. We didn't give them. We didn't tell them for.
We didn't have any criteria at that time either.
We didn't tell them for 20 years or 10 years or whatever. We said, if you want naming rights for this project, you're going to pay a significant amount of money for it. We're going to give you naming rights for this. Okay?
We set a precedent with Lexington Medical Center. They said, we'll pay this for 5 years and we want to name it, the orchestra. We probably ought to go along with that precedent. Because it's structured over 10 years, it'd be the same thing to Palmetto Health that we gave Lexington Medical Center. And I don't want to make either one of them mad.
Well, yeah, but they said
once you do the
10
one, you gotta-
years because that's what, again, they want to spread out those payments over
Yeah, I know.
10 years.
Well,
They didn't say that they wanted to end after 10 years.
well, Lexington told us they was
Lexington
giving us $60,000, but we want to spread it over. What was it, 4 years? It was
Yeah.
4 years more
Yeah.
after the first year.
Right.
So a total of 5. But that was what they were wanting to kick in because that's what they had in their budget.
Yeah.
And they wanted to spread it out over that period of time. Another thing to think about, and this is just maybe something to look at, is the orchestra asks for sponsorships every year. They are just from year to year. We have several people that sponsor the same thing every year, but it's like if you want to be a golden pod, this is what you get for that. If you want to be a platinum pod, you get everything that the golden pod gets plus this. If you want to be a diamond pod, you get everything that the golden gets, the platinum gets, and plus this. So that
Is
when
there a green pod too,
it-
Harvey?
What?
Is there a green pod too?
No, we just let you use,
Okay.
say orchestra for green pod.
I understand.
But basically what it does, it lets people everywhere know kind of where they want, depending on how much money they want to put in, just like the back of our tickets. We have a bank that sponsors the back of the tickets. They don't get to sponsor the tickets for 5 years. They pay for 1 year, they get 1 year. They pay for 2 years, they get 2 years. So that's kind of where I came from. That's what I thought we did with Lexington.
We did,
And I was
yeah.
trying to be consistent. Last thing I want to do is be consistently inconsistent.
Well, it looks bad.
Yeah, it does.
We did one thing for Lexington and we do something else for Palmetto Health, that's not right.
But it's not the same project. We're talking about a 2-day festival. We're talking about a park.
Right.
It's a
That
totally
is
different
true.
month.
That is true, but the money's similar.
But we stretch it out.
I don't know how 16 and 120 is similar. How is that similar?
15 over 5 years would
Right.
be $60,000.
Right?
This is 120 over 10 years. Lexington's a better deal, because it's less years. Think about it, it's 15,000
Well, I'll tell you
years.
what, we'll tell them to hell with it. We don't want their $120,000.
No, nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to do that, Larry, you know that.
Well, is anyone ready to make a motion for approval of whatever criteria that they're settled on? And you can start with 3 or 4 items if that's what you're comfortable with, and then if somebody wants to amend it and add something else, but at least it'll give us somewhere to go.
But you're talking about voting on all features of the park, not just talking about, this is not just for talking about health.
Yeah, this is for all naming rights, whether it be the stage or the picnic shelter or the playground or the
If somebody
trail.
came in and said, for the picnic shelter, I'd like to give you $50,000
$50,000.
for X number of years, I think we would need to look at that. If they said, I want to give you $50,000 for 20 years,
No.
I would think we would say no. If they said, we want to give you $50,000 for 10 years, maybe look at that. Or $50,000 for 5 years.
So that period is something that we have to look at on a case-by-case basis.
I would think so.
Instead of being hardwired and you're only going to do it for 10 years, which I don't agree with. I think we need to look at it on a case-by-case basis.
I think we
can
could
agree
look
with
at it
that.
on a
I
case-by-case.
can agree with that.
Yeah, or you could say a maximum, because I wouldn't think somebody would want to pay, I don't know, but for the walking trails as much as they'd want to pay for the stage.
Oh.
And maybe as much for the picnic shelter. And the more you're going to pay, then the longer the term, you probably are wanting to get that money back. But they can always go for less, you know, I don't say they want to pay 10,000, fine, you can have it for 10, but you only get 1 year or something, you know, whatever.
Now, last council meeting we had, Keeping Midlands Beautiful, they gave something for the playground equipment. Shouldn't they have, should we recognize them with some signage? Man, I know it's a,
We might have to have,
You could, they bought the swing set.
yeah, we could, because we could put it on the
You
street
could.
sign.
But see, again, that's a good example. They bought the swing set, but they don't have a right to say, well, you can't put somebody else's name on the sliding board.
Right.
And
Yeah, we do.
so, you know, that's kind of what I was seeing, and it may be just me reading something into it that's not there. But it seemed like Palmetto Health was saying, well, it's going to be the Palmetto Health Amphitheater. You can't put any other signage on there. You know, our signage has to always be there. And so I could see that as a problem, because we've already had some promoters that says, you can build a stage a certain way, we'll get you some acts in here, and people will be wanting to rent it from you.
You don't cover up the Colonial Center because you got Prince playing it.
No, they don't. They got
It's still Colonial
big
Center.
signage, but everybody knows it's the Colonial Center.
Exactly.
It's mentioned as the Colonial Center.
Exactly. So this is what it is. We're going to mention it as the Palmetto Health Amphitheater, stage and amphitheater.
Colonial Center gave one lump sum. They're not giving additional money, are they?
I think they give money every year, but I know they gave a big lump sum.
I'm sure they do, because they get skyboxes in there. They get so many per year. I would assume they give a little bit
Automatically?
every year. Yeah.
Automatically, no
Because I've
cost?
sat in them. I know, yeah. There's about 6 of them. Those things are expensive. Somebody's got to pay for them. Okay, where are we?
We're waiting on someone to make a motion for some kind of approval.
So we're at C.
Well, we're still in the B, but as soon as somebody says they're ready to make a motion, then we'll go into that. Are we ready to move on? Any more discussion? Anybody? Anything? Anybody kind of?
Trying to think how I want to start it.
Well, if you'll get started, I think we can probably
Okay.
add
I'll
to it and
start.
help you.
Start, and then if somebody wants to amend it, they can amend it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use Bob's memo
Okay.
for, as a starting point.
Is this for B,
This is,
the selection of the
C.
Yeah.
What would be
Talking about C.
C, okay, I'm sorry, C on the agenda.
Okay?
And I'm referring to the memo that came from Bob. Under the length of naming rights, sake of argument, I'm going to use 10 years. It would be for a specific feature. The type of signage must conform to our zoning ordinance.
And should be approved by the town administrator?
Would have to.
Zoning,
Or
Zoning ordinance have to be approved by the town administrator.
the zoning administrator, is it?
Zoning administrator in conjunction with the town administrator.
Yeah, I'm with the town administrator.
The colors, I don't want to get into architectural review, and I remember many years back, they had some that wanted to disallow the Blockbuster sign simply because it was tilted. I don't want to get into that, but I'd like for it to be, and help me with the wording here, in keeping with the spirit of the park.
That's arbitrary.
It's very arbitrary.
Well,
Just leave it alone.
Yeah, you can
Just leave it
say-
alone.
using natural colors.
Just not use colors at all, just
No.
Yeah.
have colors on there.
Right,
And
earth tones.
Well, write that down and then you can add it if you want to.
Well, we have in here too, you can't, as far as, like, you remember those big black signs that had the neon?
yeah, I know we restrict neon,
Yeah, we can't.
fluorescent
Ordinance
colors
already-
and
yeah.
that kind of thing. So we'll leave the signage, the colors alone as outlined in our ordinance. The location of the sign, I don't have a preference there other than to meet with, again, with the zoning ordinance. And the maintenance of any signage would be at the expense of the person placing the sign. All maintenance. If it is electrified, the cost of electricity. If it's painted, the repainting, whatever. And it would be stated that the use of the park would be subject to a calendar of availability that is maintained by the town. And we would request a 30 to 90 day notice for scheduling.
All right, so, and I'm gonna read this over and make sure I'm kind of right. But we have a motion then for approval to be for 10 years for a specific feature, which is those listed. Sign must conform to the sign-in ordinance and be approved by the zoning administrator, town administrator. Maintenance at the expense of the, whatever that term would be, payee or whoever's doing the sign. With the use of the park subject to the calendar of availability for the town staff with a 30 to 90 day notice. Is that? So that's, is there a second? So that was hard.
I second.
Any discussion?
I want to amend your motion to take out the length of time of 10 years and put in, we'll have to go by case basis to determine the length of time. Some people may want to pony up more money and be longer than 10 years. Some people are going to pony up less money and still, you're giving them 10 years for naming rights. I think that's negotiable.
So we have a motion for an amendment from 10 years to a case-by-case, when you say case-by-case
Case basis.
basis.
Length of time being case by.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Is there discussion?
See, I'm having other thoughts. Now, let's go back to the Millings Beautiful. They gave us money for the swing set.
Right.
So, I can imagine donated by Millings Beautiful. Shouldn't that stay there
Forever. I agree. I agree.
They bought the whole thing.
Shouldn't that stay forever?
On the swing set, yeah. That's
So
what,
why shouldn't the stage be there forever? Maybe forever.
Well, my answer would be the same reason. They didn't buy the whole thing.
Yes,
If
they
they
did.
had bought that stage.
They
up
bought
front,
$120,000, which is what I told them that the price of the stage
I
was.
think it's actually 190.
Well,
but-
they bought the materials, they didn't buy
Yeah.
the labor and the construction and putting it up and all that stuff that we paid for. I mean, we had to pay to put it up.
Okay, put it this way, when I asked the question, how much it cost, I was told 120 grand, and that's what I asked them for. Okay, so that's what they gave us. Let me see something here.
So, any more discussion on the 10-year to case by case?
Let me throw this out. I'm not sure I got my numbers right. You would help me think through it. You got $120,000. If we're trying to get some kind of criteria and say that we allow up to 10% in longevity, then that would mean the $120,000 would run for 12 years. If they gave $150,000, it would run for 15 years. 10%. With that, is my numbers right? Am I making sense? I'm trying to get some kind of mathematical formula that you can say, if you're going to put up a little more money, you're going to get more time. More money, more time.
If you take the square root of 15 and multiply it by the pi, you can always get a bigger number. You know, I'm sure we'll come up with some criteria or mathematical equation that give a longer period of time. So let's try to keep it simple and straightforward. Palmetto Lifeline gave us $4,000 for a plaque for a swing set, and we don't, tell them we're perfectly for 10 years or whatever.
Keep the middle beautiful.
Keep the middle beautiful, sorry.
well, if we used,
Sorry. Keep the middle
if we used the
beautiful for
bronze
10
on the
years.
column, like I wanted to do, it could stay there forever. We could put swing set donated by Keep the Midlands Beautiful. Is that right, Brian?
Yes.
Keep
Yes.
the middle beautiful.
Yeah. It would have to be hit by a large truck to come down. I mean,
Little plaque on a rock right next to it,
yeah.
forever.
If you're paying for the sign and the maintenance of the sign yourself, I mean, hell, you don't
Well,
care.
there's no maintenance to that.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
So, bronze plaque on the column, donated by Palmetto Health,
Yeah.
but they can name the stage for 10 years. The plaque will be there forever. Donated by Palmetto Health, so forever. Everybody will know that. The signage, the stage will be named Palmetto Health for 10 years. I mean, that's getting two bonuses.
Well, I think what she was saying it'd be one or the other. You could either
Yeah.
vote on letting them have a bronze plaque forever,
Yeah.
or we could vote on putting whatever else they're talking about here, but it'd only be for 10 years. Yeah, I don't think it'd get
You have
voted.
the option. If they want to design their own sign and put it up there, then, yeah, that's different. Then you don't get the brick column and bronze.
But I would think it would be, I don't know, a little bit confusing with time, trying to keep up with either this or that. I would just say let them have naming rights for a specific period of time, for like Harvey said, for a specific dollar amount, based on however the thing that costs. But
That swing set may not last more than 10 years,
yeah, that's true, it's not.
because I haven't seen one yet that did.
Well, then we have plastic.
Let's go make sure of that.
He's swallowing back there.
Well, we can vote on the 10-year to case-by-case basis, and that will either pass or not, and then we're back to the other stuff. Is there any more discussion on the amendment?
I just have to ask a question, Bob. Bob,
Sir?
isn't there another part of the USA that's similar? It has to be. That's been developed with people making donations.
Yeah, Finley
I'm
Park.
sure they're all over the place. Oh, yeah.
Finley Park.
Yeah.
That was called, what was it called before Finley Park? It was called something else.
Would
That
it be
Myers, that other mayor?
No, it was China Park.
What's a plan, a different plan than maybe what this is? I mean,
I
based
think-
on real criteria from other parks. I mean, I think we know enough to make that decision to set these prices in the years.
I think we could come up with guidelines, that they weren't etched in stone. but we
Here's a
could come up
guideline,
with
leave that open and then, y'all support it.
All of these
I mean,
could be, there could be an exception, or there could be, you could negotiate it. But this would be the framework. If somebody wants to give money, this is a general framework, which I think we need.
Well, we got roughly 4 things that maybe will be named or may not be named that I think 3 people are already talking to. And then, I won't say it's going to be over with for 10 or 20 years, and then you name it again, if, whatever. But I know in South Carolina, I don't know that there's any places, I called the municipal association, talked to them to find out if they knew of somebody doing, the only leeway they had was Spartanburg just named a skateboard park. But it's a little bit different scenario in that they don't own the land, they lease the land from somebody and they're doing a community development in that area. One of the volunteers who serve on wanting this skate park there, husband owns a big oil company and he decided to give him $100,000. It cost $400,000 to build it. He gave him $100,000 and they said, well, you can put your name on the sign out at the park, and it's called Hot Spots Skate Park. And there's really no term limit on it because they lease the land under a 10-year renewable. So at the end of 10 years, if they keep the park, it's final step. At the end of 10 years, if they don't, then the owner of the property will get the park back and tear it all down. But they based it on that skate park equipment may not last forever. So they're just going to lease the land for X amount of years and then put that stuff up that it one day will wear out. And then they may or may not renew it, and they may or may not tear it down. So he put up $100,000, which is 25%, and he's gambling. I get 10 years, maybe 15.
Yeah, that's because of the
Before all this stuff.
Park, right?
Yeah, because the stuff will wear out and fall apart, and the owner of the property may decide at the end of 10 years not to renew the lease. So he got it for 25% for 10 years, $10,000 a year, roughly. I think that's right, yeah. 100,000, 10 years, yeah. But that was about the only thing around here that was anything similar to that. Any more discussion on the 10-year case by case?
One more.
Okay.
There was a compromise. See, I don't know, just throw it out there. 15 years. Would you be happy with 15 years across the board?
Yeah, I'd put in 10 for that kind of money, yeah.
Harvey? 15 years sound reasonable, I mean.
We can make a motion to amend it to 15, and then we'll see.
Well, I'll amend my motion to 15 and put a
We'll just
specific.
make let's see.
It says on a case-by-case basis, which, the amendment says that, which
Well, that's-
means you could negotiate
To
it.
15.
If they tell us we're not going to give you the 120,000 unless it's 15 years, I bet we'll go along with it.
I'd like to see it, I would amend mine to say on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, because
Okay, then let's
it
do that.
depends on the amount. If you're going to give us 10,000, no,
Right.
you're not going to get much.
Well, exactly,
You're
and
gonna
that's
get
my
back.
point. I mean, I don't want it's in stone 10 years,
To keep the millings beautiful. I mean, that's a smaller amount.
They go get a column and a bronze packet, lasts forever, just like at the cemetery.
So we can vote right now, I guess,
Okay,
on
we're
the
back to
case
the
by
original,
case.
back to the original case by case.
Yeah, so we're not doing 10 years, we're doing case by case right now. All in favor of changing Harvey's 10-year to case by case basis, do so with show of hands.
Okay, we're agreed.
All right, so that is, let me make a note here.
We can see.
right.
Easy.
So now we're back to the motion that has the length of naming on a case by case, and then all the other criteria is still the same. Any amendments to that, or any discussion on that?
Would you say that again?
Right now, our motion is for the naming rights to be a case-by-case basis, time-wise. And then the specific features and all the other stuff that he mentioned is all still the same as it was when it got
Okay.
maintenance at the expense of the payee, the use of space is subject to availability, 30 to 90-day notice, and signage approved by zoning administrator and all that. Any more discussion on that or any amendments to that?
We're going.
All ready to vote then? All in favor then, and I'm not going to read it all, but basically we're on a case-by-case basis for the length of the naming rights. And then zoning administrator, town administrator must approve the signage, maintenance at the expense of the payee, and
Well, signage based on our zoning.
okay. On the zoning ordinance approved by the, must conform to the signing, to our signage ordinance, but approved by the zoning ordinance administrator, town administrator. And then availability is subject to use is to the availability and the 30-day notice, 30 to 90-day notice. Is that?
Done for the town. Okay, yeah. Okay.
So all in favor? Oh,
You got this? You got all this?
Between me and Kim, we'll have it all.
Because I need to get a copy of this written up so I can...
Well, maybe tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, yeah, I know. We'll get it. You gonna go back over and talk to him, or Jake gonna go talk to him?
I'm going to talk to him.
Okay.
So all in favor of those criteria that has just been mentioned, all in favor do so with show of hands. So, next item is presentation by citizens.
Unless Susan wants to say something, we don't have any.
She doesn't.
This is the time where anyone who wants to address town council on anything, whether it's on the agenda or not, may do so. And seeing no one here, I guess no one wants to, unless Kim or Chief or Kurt or somebody. We do have on here an executive session. I done forgot what it was. On a legal contractual matter. So all in favor of executive session on a legal contractual matter, do so with show of hands.
Who made the motion?
I'll make the motion. Yeah, I guess.
I'll second.
And so we're going into executive session. There'll be no votes or anything taken, and we'll come back out and adjourn. From executive session, no votes were taken. Next item on the agenda is adjournment. Is there a motion
I
for?
feel an urge to make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor of adjournment?
15 years for that.
All in favor of adjournment, do so with aye. Aye. We are adjourned.